3 negative questions that will make your life infinitely better. What's going on, guys? It's Tak. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 negative questions that are going to make your life so much better. Now, you're probably asking, Tak, why are you asking such negative questions? And the answer is very simple. Because life isn't always perfect. Yeah, life sucks sometimes. But in order to have great things in life, we also have to go through the sucky parts of life as well. This video isn't made for you to feel good. This video is made for you to feel great. And if you want to feel great, you also have to understand that, yeah, there are some things that suck, and you need to embrace those suck in order to become great. Think of like vegetables when you were a kid. Yeah, it sucks to eat them, but it makes you happier and healthier in the long run. Things like medicine. Medicine tastes like shit sometimes, but it makes you feel better in the long run. So, with that being said, consider this video as the proverbial vegetable to your diet of junk food. And with that being said, let's answer the first question, which is, what are the potential downsides of making this decision? Oh, should I buy this new phone? Should I change my job? Well, yeah, you can think of all the great things that come with buying a new phone, for example, but have you ever considered all the downsides? Potential downsides to buying a new phone, for example, can include things like having to save money or having to go with less money, and therefore you will need to make sacrifices in order to buy the new phone. Well, what sacrifices are you going to have to make? Well, if you like to buy clothes all the time, well, you might have to go without buying clothes for the next half year in order to use that money to buy a new phone. Well, now that you understood the downsides to the positive sides, then it's really easy to weigh the pros and the cons of making a decision in order to make a rational decision and see if you truly want to actually buy a new phone and make that big decision. Look, this helps you get your head out of the clouds and make sure you're not emotionally clouded when you make big decisions, because if you think about it, in life as young adults, we're going to be making a lot of big decisions. And yeah, it's easy to say that we want all the positives. Yeah, life's going to be great if we make this decision, but there's going to be a lot of downsides to making that same decision. And it's really important for you not to be blindsided by all the negative things that are going to happen as a result of making that decision. Does that make sense? Question number 2 is, what are your biggest flaws? Look, we all want to feel things like being the most confident version of ourselves, being the happiest, being the funniest, being the smartest, things like that, which is all a good thing. But if you also want to truly feel things like confidence, you also have to understand where your biggest weaknesses are in order to truly feel confident. Look, obviously I understand mine, and you can understand yours as well with a little sprinkle of self-awareness. So if you actually truly want to feel happy and confident about yourself without having to fake it, or without having to bullshit it, or without having to hype yourself up, then you also have to understand what your biggest weaknesses are. Look, a lot of things that people do, they actually do it in order to avoid their biggest flaws and avoid their biggest weaknesses. Because why? Because those weaknesses and flaws cause a lot of pain. Think about this. People make a lot of money to buy a lot of things that they don't need in order to impress people they don't even like or don't even know, because they're scared to death of, not being without external validation. Look, having external validation is actually completely normal, and it's actually a really good thing. But you also must understand what your biggest weaknesses are in order for you to become completely confident and become truly happy. Does that make sense? So it's super important to understand where your biggest weaknesses are and your biggest flaws are, along with where your biggest strengths are, in order to completely understand you as a whole and make better decisions and become truly confident and become happy in that sense. Does that make sense? Question number 3, super important, is what problems and struggles are you willing to deal with? If you ask yourself, what do you want in life? You're going to get very generic answers such as, I want $1 million, I want to have a partner, I want to start a family, if you're that age of course, I want a nice car, I want a nice house, I want to do something incredible, change the world, I want to be happy, I want to be smart, things like that. And that's great. Everybody wants them. You want it, I want it, everybody wants it. But the question that should really be asked, and usually never is because people don't want to come across as rude, so I'm going to ask it, is what problems do you want to deal with in order to get what you want? Look, let's just say you want $1 million and you want to do that by starting a business that will pay you $1 million. Sounds logical, right? It is. But have you ever considered all the problems that you have to go through in order to be at a position where your business can make you $1 million? Problems that can arise can include things like, working long hours for gratification that you may never receive, prioritizing starting your business over anything else in your life, having to make extremely tough decisions that 99% of people probably will cringe at the thought of making them, and having to be responsible for everything. People who start businesses have to be responsible for every little thing that happens, even things that are completely not your fault and completely out of your control. Do you really want all that responsibility? And do you really want to deal with all those problems? If you said yes, that's amazing. That means you must have considered all the negative aspects, all the problems that you're going to have to deal with in order to get to your goal of having a successful business. And that's great. Go ahead and do it. But if you said no to one of these questions, or even all those questions, it should serve as a big red flag, like a big red flag, like a waving red flag in front of your face saying stop and consider all the problems before you even start. Look, imagine if you started a business without understanding all the negative and problems that you have to go through. Every little problem that's obviously going to occur is going to feel like an injustice to your superiority because you never even considered it in the first place. Look, one great example of this is how much top CEOs in the world get paid. Look, I was reading an article on LinkedIn the other day about how much top CEOs get paid in the world, and their salaries were like tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and things like that. And then I went to the comments, and all the comments were super negative. They were like, oh, why do these people deserve all this money? Why do you need that much money? Oh, why don't you pay your employees better? Things like that. And something that these commenters are missing, by the way, these comments are all very valid, but what these commenters are missing is that these top CEOs have to deal with so many problems that you can't, like the average person can't even fathom. Things like making big decisions on a daily basis that can make or break your company. Things like having to be responsible for every little mistake that your company makes. Having to be responsible for billions and billions of dollars of revenue that your company has. And the reason why these top CEOs get paid so much is because out of 7 billion people in the world, only a tiny fraction of people are actually qualified to become a CEO. You and I probably aren't qualified to become that top CEO. And then out of the tiny population of people, only a fraction of that tiny population actually wants to take on all those problems in order to get all the money. Look, most of the people who are even qualified to become a CEO, they're like, fuck that shit, I don't want to deal with all those problems. So, if you know anything about supply and demand and basic economics, you know that these big companies have to pay the CEOs hundreds of millions of dollars because that's how economics works. And the people who are commenting things like, oh, why don't they pay their employees better? And, oh, why do these people deserve all this money? They're not taking into consideration all the problems that the CEOs have to go through in order to get hundreds of millions of dollars. Look, it's completely normal to want the end goal without working for it, but in reality, we must understand and endure all the problems it takes to achieve those end goals. And things like CEO compensation is just a reward for dealing with all those problems. Does that make sense? If you guys made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that. In life, it's super important to consider all the negative aspects in order to achieve all the positive things in your life. This video wasn't made for you to feel good, but it was made for you to feel great by considering all the negative things that are going to inevitably happen in your life. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, hit me with a like, and with that being said, I will see you in the next episode. Peace. Hey, this is Tack. I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Why? Because we go over the mindsets that you need in order for you to accomplish what you want. Do you want $1 million? Do you want the career that you always wanted? Do you want to simply be happy? Great. Click the subscribe button right now and I promise you will be happy forever. Take care.